Hello, welcome to lesson 19 of the Changing Economic World topic in GCSE Geography. This is the first lesson of our case study of an NEE, and we're focusing on Nigeria, a country in Africa. In this series of lessons, we will be looking about Nigerian development, the challenges it faces, and what it can do to develop further. You will understand how a NEE goes from an LIC to an HIC, and what might make it more successful. Please write the date, title, and learning objective. Have a pen and paper ready to learn. Time to review learning. Please write 1 to 10, answer the questions from memory, and then reveal the answers and mark your work. Go for it. So number 1, what type of aid involves giving people money? Involves people giving money to NGOs. It's voluntary aid. 2. What word means when people abuse their position of power for their own gain? Corruption. 3. Jamaica is located in the west of what ocean? The Atlantic Ocean. 4. What percent of Jamaica's GDP comes from tourism annually? 30%. 5. What is the most popular tourist town in Jamaica? Montego Bay. 6. Industrialization can lead to a multiplier effect, which makes other people and businesses wealthier as well. 7. Development is the long-term improvement in people's lives. 8. If a country has a high birth rate and rapidly falling death rate, what stage of the DTM is it in? Stage 2. 9. The development gap causes the movement of people around the world. What is this called? Migration. 10. The main cause of death in LICs are infectious diseases like malaria, HIV, and tuberculosis. Give yourselves a mark out of 10. Any that you got wrong, write them, write the answers, test yourself. Come back to this in a week and see if you improve. Well done. Okay, this lesson I'm going to introduce you simply to Nigeria's geography. By this I mean its physical features, so the natural features, things like its climate and location, and its human features, so things like the cities and religions and the rich places and poor places. This background knowledge will help you understand the challenges and opportunities that we explore together in future lessons. Next, I'm going to show you a map of Nigeria, a blank map, and I'm going to show 4 questions. See if you can answer them using the image and your own knowledge. Go for it. So number 1, what do you think the climate is like in the south of Nigeria? So just from this picture, you should be able to see that at the very least, this must be a rainy climate. There must be lots of precipitation, just from the green, which suggests there's lots of trees. Also, you could say that since it's near the equator, it's probably a tropical climate, which means hot and wet all year round. 2. How do you think the climate in the north of Nigeria is different to the south? Well, if you look at the north of Nigeria, it's browner and more yellow. Suggests that it's more like a desert and it's drier than the south of Nigeria. 3. What region of Nigeria do you think has higher crop yields and why? Well, if you look carefully at this map and you thought about what a crop yield is and what plants need to grow, you would probably have put that the south has higher crop yields than the north because it gets more regular rainfall, which allows crops to grow. 4. How might the difference in crop yields in Nigeria affect the GDP per capita of the different areas? Well, if an area has low crop yields, then the farmers are likely to make a lower income. People are also more likely to not have enough food. So this might mean that the south has a higher GDP per capita than the north, since crop yields are higher in the south than the north. We will find out if these things are true. Excellent. So I'm going to explore 2 very important questions about Nigeria with you this lesson. The first one is, what is Nigeria's physical geography like? We're going to go deeper into these questions we've just looked at. And secondly, what is Nigeria's human geography like? Okay. Write the following subtitle. What is Nigeria's physical geography like? I've got 2 links here. They are attached underneath this video on YouTube. Please watch them before you continue. So Nigeria is a country located in West Africa here. The south of Nigeria is almost on the equator, and the north of Nigeria is near the desert latitudes. So what does that mean? Let me show you. Here is a map of Nigeria's different climate zones. So, basic introduction to each one of them. In the south of Nigeria, you have a tropical climate. It's hot and wet all year round. This is a climate graph. The orange line shows the temperature. As you see, it's pretty much the same temperature the whole year. It's constant temperature. That's typical of an equatorial climate, a climate that's on the equator. It also has a lot of precipitation for most of the year, except for the beginning and the end of the year. So there's heavy rain and constant temperature throughout the year. That's typical of a tropical climate. In the central area of Nigeria, though, the climate is quite different. We call these savanna grasslands. In this area, for example, in this town called Kano, you can see that the temperature varies slightly more than in the tropical area. It's got seasons. In the winter, it's colder, and in the summer, it's slightly hotter. Not a very big difference, but it's definitely there. And there's a big difference between the wet and the dry season. The summer in the savanna grasslands area has heavy rainfall, and the winter has much lower rainfall. It is in this region of Nigeria, the savanna grasslands, where most farming occurs, most agriculture. In the north of Nigeria, the climate is different still. In this region of Nigeria, you have a semi-arid or even desert climate. It's very hot for most of the year, except in the beginning and the end of the year, where it's slightly cooler. But the big difference is that there's very little rainfall except for a couple of months in the middle of the year. This means that farming is extremely difficult. As a result of these patterns, agriculture is most common in the centre. There's a reason why agriculture is less common in the tropical forest area. The south of Nigeria isn't just forest. A lot of it has been deforested. But one big problem with the south for agriculture is that diseases live best in tropical climates, these humid, constantly hot, wet climates. In particular, certain diseases affect agriculture and livestock, the animals. There is a very famous fly in Nigeria that causes illness to cattle, cows. It's called the tsetse fly, Tsetse, and it causes sleeping sickness in the cattle, which prevents them from giving birth and from growing. As a result, agriculture is more difficult in the south. In the centre of Nigeria, there are slightly fewer diseases because it's a little drier, and the crops grow better there. In the north of Nigeria, agriculture is very difficult because of the arid, which means very dry climate. Please make sure you've watched these videos before you continue. Okay. Second question. What is Nigeria's geography like? So in this question, I'm going to relate to both physical and human geography. Please write this subtitle. Here's another map of Nigeria, but you'll notice this is very different. This map shows the difference in altitude in different areas. Dark green means high altitude, light green means low altitude. Also, these dotted areas show the urban areas, the cities and the towns in Nigeria. It also shows the main rivers. I'm not going to explain everything to you, but I'm going to show you some key points. Firstly, you'll notice that Nigeria is bordered by a number of countries. Secondly, you'll notice Nigeria is not a landlocked country. It borders the Atlantic Ocean. There are some key settlements, cities that you need to know about to help you understand Nigeria. The first one is this. The capital city is called Abuja, and it looks a little like this in some areas. It only became the capital city in 1991, and it was positioned in the center of Nigeria because the north of Nigeria is mostly Muslim, as we will find out, and the south is mostly Christian. And there are lots of different ethnic groups broken up within Nigeria. The capital city was placed in the center so that the people would not feel that any particular ethnic group had a control over the capital city and therefore the power of the country. So the aim of putting Abuja, the capital city, in the center was to make as many people happy as possible. Abuja is what's called a planned city, which means it was built before people lived there. And so it's quite modern and quite wealthy, and it's where the government is. It also has a big Muslim population and a big Christian population. The biggest city, however, by far is Lagos. A city with more than 20 million people, it is a megacity. It is also the richest city in the world, with a GDP of more than $100 billion. A third of all the money made in Nigeria is made in this city of Lagos. There is huge traffic and problems with poverty, but there's also great wealth in Lagos. Mostly because Nigeria exports oil, and many of the businessmen and the companies that are involved in the export of oil are based in Lagos. We will explore this city in more detail in future lessons. By contrast, in the northeast, in the poorest area of Nigeria, you have a city called Maiduguri. Maiduguri is in the Muslim area of Nigeria, and it is constantly at risk of conflict and violence. Here you see a suicide bomb attack in the middle of the city. Poverty is much higher in this city than in the south and centre of Nigeria. People are much more likely to be Muslim than in the south and centre of Nigeria, and people are much more likely to be poorer. Really important, Maiduguri. The final question of today is, what is Nigeria's human geography like? So I'm going to tell you a little about the history of Nigeria and the key issues and problems that face Nigeria's people today. Please make sure you watch these videos before the lesson ends, and I link them below. So, Nigeria's human geography. I will show you about Nigeria's human geography through 3 maps, which will help you to understand what life is like for the people there. First map. This map shows the percent of people living in absolute poverty in the different states in Nigeria. Absolute poverty is defined as living on less than $1.90 every day. Think about it. If you were in England and you made only $1.90 a day, it would be almost impossible to survive. You will notice a clear pattern. The south and southwest of Nigeria and the centre of Nigeria in Abuja have much lower percent of absolute poverty than the north, northeast and east of Nigeria. So, overall pattern, the south is richer than the north. Why has this happened? Well, it all dates back to the fact that Nigeria was a colony of the United Kingdom. Britain was involved in colonialism, just like Belgium in the Congo. However, when Britain colonized Nigeria, they didn't set up cities and towns deep into the country for one important reason. The colonialists, the British, were vulnerable, which means they could be hurt by the diseases in Africa, in particular malaria. As a result, they didn't want to and they couldn't go deep into the country because they were dying. So they remained near the coast. This meant that they spent most of their efforts developing the coast and very little effort developing the inland of Nigeria. As a result, the coastal Nigeria today is richer than the northern area of Nigeria because the British invested in things like schools and hospitals and roads and ports here. And they did very little investment up in the north. That's the first reason why the south of Nigeria is richer than the north. The second reason, which I will explore with you in more detail in future lessons, is that oil has been discovered in Nigeria in the south in the 1960s. And this oil was sold by the business people and the leaders who lived in the south, and they became extremely rich, but they did not share much of their wealth with the people in the north. Those leaders who controlled the oil after it was discovered were mostly Christian. However, the people in the north are mostly Muslim. Let me show you. This is a general map of religions in Nigeria. There are more religions than just Christianity and Islam, but they are the 2 main religions, and you will notice a very clear divide. The north of Nigeria is Muslim, and the south of Nigeria is Christian. The richest 2 cities, Abuja and Lagos, are in Christian states, whereas the northern cities of Kano and Maiduguri, much poorer, are in Muslim states. So Islam in the north, poorer. Christianity in the south, richer. That creates a big problem because there's inequality between the north and the south, and this causes conflict. The Muslims in the north are not happy that the Christians in the south are not sharing their wealth with the Muslims in the north. They are not spending money on the northern cities to help them develop. This creates problems which we will learn about in future lessons. Finally, Nigeria is made up of many ethnic groups. In Europe, for example, there are many ethnic groups. You have French people, Polish people, Austrians, you've got Serbians and Bosnians, you have Anglo-Saxons, white English people, Norwegians, Swedish. These are all different ethnic groups. Nigeria similarly has lots of ethnic groups. And here's why. Nigeria, before the British arrived, was not a country. It was not one country ruled by one government. The British, to make it easier for them to control, drew this border and said, we control all of this. And in doing that, they mixed all these different ethnic groups together who wouldn't normally mix. People who have very different beliefs and languages and laws. And as a result, there was conflict between these ethnic groups when the British left. Some of these groups wanted control, others wanted control, and they couldn't decide who should get power. There are a few key groups you need to know about. 3 ethnic groups in Nigeria are particularly important. In the southwest, the richest ethnic group are called the Yoruba, and they make up 20% of all Nigerians. And they are in this orange area in Lagos. In the southeast of Nigeria is the Igbo tribe, spelled Igbo. Very important. These people here are angry because not many Igbo people are in the government of Nigeria, so they feel that the government does not support and does not want to help the Igbo areas develop. That causes conflict. And finally, in the north, in this big green area, you have an ethnic group called Hausa Fulani. They are a Muslim ethnic group and have been for hundreds of years, and they are mostly farmers. So you have rich Yoruba, who have many Yoruba members in governments. They are powerful. You have the Igbo in the southeast, also rich, but their members are not in government, so they feel frustrated. And finally, you have the Hausa Fulani ethnic group in the north, who are Muslim farmers mostly. And these 3 ethnic groups do not always agree with each other, and they are constantly pushing to have one of their members as president. The current president is a man named Muhammadu Buhari, and he is a Hausa Fulani, the first Hausa Fulani president. It's really important. He's a Muslim president from the north of Nigeria, and this has a big effect on the country. Before we move on, make sure you've watched these 3 videos to help you understand this better. So let's review. North and northeast of Nigeria, much poorer than south of Nigeria. Why? Because the British invested in and built up infrastructure in the south, but they didn't do so in the north. North of Nigeria is mostly Muslim. South of Nigeria is mostly Christian. The richest city, Lagos, is in southwest Nigeria, mostly Christian. There are many ethnic groups in Nigeria. The 3 main ones are the Yoruba, the Igbo, and the Hausa Fulani. All of them want to have a member of their group as president, so that they can get a president who helps them and their ethnic group. This causes problems between these groups, and violence and conflict often break out. This basic introduction to Nigeria's physical and human geography is important for understanding the challenges that Nigeria faces. So make sure you watch this explanation repeatedly and that you watch these videos. Time to practice. Please write 1 to 21 in your books. Read the paragraphs, put the words in the gaps, and then, once you've attempted every gap, mark your answers. Go for it. Pause the video. Number 1. Nigeria is a NEE located in West Africa. It has the largest population in Africa and the biggest economy, which means it's the richest country overall and it's got more people than any other country in Africa. Nigeria's largest city is Lagos, located in southwest of the country. The main ethnic group found here is Yoruba, found in central Nigeria. It was chosen, which is also the dominant group in Nigerian politics. The capital city is Abuja, found in central Nigeria. It was chosen as the new capital to ease the tension between the mostly Muslim north and mostly Christian south. The south of Nigeria is, on average, richer than the north, with lower levels of poverty. The level of inequality is high in Nigeria, with people in the south having a higher average income than the north, and a few people being extremely wealthy. This has caused conflict between poor people in the rural north and the wealthier urban areas. There are many ethnic groups in Nigeria. The current president, Muhammadu Buhari, is from a Fulani family in the Muslim north. The physical geography of Nigeria is important. The climate in the south is tropical, with widespread areas of rainforest with high biodiversity. The large central area of Nigeria is drier savanna, which is where most of the farming occurs. In North Nigeria, in the Sahel, which is an area on the edge of the Sahara Desert and it's semi-arid, the climate is arid. Farming is difficult here, which partly explains why people are poorer. One exception is the high-altitude area called the Jos Plateau, which is cooler and has a relatively wealthy capital called Jos. I should review with you this point. The Jos Plateau is an area in central Nigeria that's at higher altitude than the area around it. This makes it cooler and therefore easier to farm. It also, as a result, makes it wealthier. It's a very important town that we will discuss in a future lesson. The climate across Nigeria means that insects such as mosquitoes thrive, causing diseases like malaria to be a widespread problem. Finally, the south of Nigeria has large oil reserves underground, which Nigeria extracts and exports around the world. This natural resource is Nigeria's main source of government revenue. Please give yourselves a mark out of 21. If you missed a few, watch the explanation again and attempt this in at least a week. Excellent. Time to practice. At this point, you're going to answer questions in your own words to make sure you really understood this. 4 questions. Answer them in your own words. Then check the answers after you've answered them. Go. Okay. Suggest a way that Nigeria's physical geography has created challenges. So any one of these would get you the mark. The arid climate in the north. The south has a tropical climate that allows diseases like malaria to spread. The south has pests such as the tsetse fly. Any one of those would get you a mark. Suggest what region of Nigeria has higher crop yields, north or central? The central region. Explain your choice for this question. You should have said that central Nigeria has more regular rainfall than the north one, so that crops go better. You could have also said that because central Nigeria is richer, farmers in central Nigeria can afford fertilizer, pesticides, or machines. Finally, describe the location of Nigeria's capital city and explain why this location was chosen. So you should have said that Abuja is in central Nigeria, at the meeting point between the main religions, Islam and Christianity. This was intended to reduce the perception the Christians south govern Nigeria. Give yourselves a mark. Add up your score and add any corrections in green. Review the lesson explanation and the videos if you missed anything or misunderstood anything. If you have any questions, email me. Fantastic. Okay. From the questions that you've written from memory based on previous lessons, test yourselves on them from memory until you've understood and memorized all of them. Well done. Next lesson, we will be beginning to explore Nigeria's relationship with the rest of Africa and the world, and also understanding more deeply what the life and culture is like in Nigeria, so you understand the struggles that people, just like us, face on a daily basis there. Join me then.